Welcome to the Daniel Cleland Podcast. Plant medicine. Entrepreneurship. Expat living. The Daniel Cleland Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, today I have the honor and privilege of sitting down with Aubrey Marcus. Aubrey Marcus is the founder, chairman, and former CEO of Onnit Labs in Austin, Texas. He is the New York Times Bestselling Author of the book Own the Day, Own Your Life. He is the future New York Times Bestselling Author of the book Master Your Mind. He is the founder and leader of the mastermind fellowship group Fit For Service, which I had the opportunity to be a part of in its founding year. Aubrey has inspired hundreds of thousands or even millions of people to learn more about and possibly explore the world of plant medicines and other psychedelics. He's certainly been a driving force behind public awareness about my own company, Soltaria Healing Center in Costa Rica, and even past ventures as well. His stories captivate the imagination and take people on a journey. Aubrey has been on the Joe Rogan podcast nearly 20 times, along with basically every other relevant podcast in the space. He's a staunch supporter of the psychedelic research and plant medicine movements, along with Decriminalize Nature. He is an entrepreneurial role model and leader who I respect immensely. So today, I'm extremely pleased and excited to get a little bit of time to ask Aubrey some of the burning questions that I have on my mind. I'm sure this conversation will not disappoint, so please welcome to the show, Mr. Aubrey Marcus. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, brother. Thanks for that. Thanks for that very robust introduction. I appreciate all that.
I mean, I literally just rhymed that off the top of my head. Like, I didn't do any research for that at all. Yeah, an easy person to talk up, that's for sure. So what's going on in Austin right now with you? What's new in Aubrey's world?
It's been a lot of podcasts I've been recording, honestly, and they seem to go in bursts, and there's been a huge burst. I think I've done 13 podcasts in the last 2.5 weeks. So, it's just been one of those seasons where I've been really going for it, and they've been some amazing shows. So that's been really the top of my focus. We have Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I know this won't release at the time that we're recording it, but that's upcoming. So, keeping an eye on everything that's going on at Onnit, and then Fit For Service, preparing for the launch for 2021. And just generally keeping an eye out in the world and seeing what interesting things are happening in the collective right now, which has certainly been a very interesting year.
There's definitely no shortage of interesting things happening in the collective right now. So so we actually, if you don't mind me telling a little story about how I actually came to get to know who you were and how we actually got in touch, because we go back a ways, right? Like we met in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2014, I was just starting to get some movement with Pulse Tours. It was like I only had my ex Tatiana working with me at that time. We had a couple of tour leaders, so just starting to kind of expand a little bit. And it was, I think, in the late spring or early summer of that year. And we had a little bit of movement, but then one day it was just wham, hundreds of inquiries every day for a week. I'm like, what in the hell happened here? I had no idea. And it was just me and Tatiana responding to emails. So it took us 3 weeks to get back to everybody. And I still had no idea what was going on. So then I talked to one of the guys who it took me 3 weeks to get back to. I'm like, sorry, man, I don't know what happened here, but we just got all these inquiries and it's taken me a long time to get back to you. So my apologies. He says, well, that doesn't surprise me because Amber Lyon just went on Joe Rogan and mentioned this website, iAdvisor, and you guys were high up on the list there of centers. So then Amber directed all these people to iAdvisor, and then it sent it to us. And actually at that time, like, I didn't even really know who Joe Rogan was. Like, I mean, I knew I watched Fear Factor and everything, but like, I didn't know he was in the podcast world talking about psychedelics. Like, I had my own completely isolated journey from that world, right? I didn't know who Onnit was. I didn't know who you were. And so this dude told me, he's like, yeah, man, you should check out Aubrey Marcus. You should check out Joe Rogan. They're doing great podcasts and everything. And so I looked you up, found you on Twitter, and I remember one day living in Iquitos, like being in the gym, in this like terrible gym in Iquitos, like running on a terrible treadmill. It's like one of those treadmills. I don't know if you've ever been on one this crappy, but like when you're running and like every third step, you land on the belt and it sticks to the thing. So like it like kind of like trips you up and makes it really difficult. So I remember I'm like there in Iquitos running on this treadmill, thinking about like, how do I reach out? How can I get in touch with Aubrey? And so I got this harebrained idea to contact you and say, why don't we like bring Onnit supplements into our ayahuasca program? So like, you could have like just enhance the ayahuasca experience with alpha brain or whatever. And you're like, at first, like, yeah, that sounds cool. Let me check to see with my people if that would be functional. And then you're like, no, it's not going to work. So yeah, man, that was like 6 years ago. And, we've kind of crossed paths a few times since then. I was, had the opportunity to be part of your Fit For Service, founding year, went to a couple ragers at your house over the years, which were just like amazing. And, just kind of ended up getting involved with a lot of the, mutual friends and everything like that. But one thing I've noticed about all this time is that, both you and I have really gone on journeys in the past 6 years. Like I think, let me know if this is fair to say, but I know I'm not the same person I was 6 years ago. And I would say, based on my perception of you, you've grown a lot in the past 6 years. You have, like, your journey has gone into like, like next levels, like levels up. And so, if you don't mind me asking, what in your opinion are like the biggest kind of differences between the Aubrey of then and the Aubrey of now?
Well, I'm just the type of person that puts myself in difficult situations to learn what adaptations need to be made and what lessons are available in those difficult situations. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I love the psychedelic experience when approached the right way. I mean, this is no carnival ride. This is deep and heavy work. And sometimes it can be blissful, no doubt. And those, always grateful for those experiences because there's lessons in the bliss and lessons in some of the deep ecstasy that you can feel from these experiences, as well as the challenge. But whatever it is, I've put myself in challenging situations to see what I could find and try and create an optimized life. And certainly over the last 6 years prior to this year, my journey in polyamory was the thing that was it was the hammer, it was the anvil, it was the forge, it was the fire. It was putting the maximum amount of pressure on me. Of course, my entrepreneurial endeavors, there was periods of intense pressure with that. I got in a car accident. There's a lot of different things that happened, but ultimately challenge creates, adaptation, and resistance creates adaptation. And that's been the pathway for me. I mean, learning a lot about my own self-love or deficiency thereof, which the open relationship highlighted, my, overextension of self, which I think led to the car accident, trying to take care of everybody and not letting anybody take care of me until I was just absolutely exhausted. There was a lot of different situations and things that I learned. But it's all on a continuum. There was not a single moment where I can say, oh, after this point, everything was different. It was kind of a constant continuum going as far back as I can remember, but certainly there was points of dramatic acceleration that certainly happened. And when I met Vailana, my wife right now, I mean, that was a period of dramatic acceleration where I started to learn from love instead of learning from challenge. And there was certainly some challenging times in that, year that I got in my car accident, and a lot of things erupted in my former relationship with Whitney. That was 2017, 2018. There was an acceleration of growth in that year. But it's been a hell of a ride, man. And I'm grateful to be where I'm at right now, having harvested all the lessons. I wouldn't want to go through it all again, but I would if I needed to. And that's just the way of it.
Yeah, man, I can definitely identify with that. Couple things to unpack there. With your relationship with Vailana, and also your car accident. I know you've talked about your accident and everything, but I've also had a massively life-changing accident as well. So I think there's value in talking about the lessons learned in that thing. But what do you think? You want to introduce Vailana and kind of talk about the story of how that came to be, and how are things going with Vailana, and what has she brought into your life?
Well, I always thought one of the reasons why I was drawn to polyamory was because I thought, well, I mean, I love so many aspects of people. I love all different aspects of so many different individuals. To ultimately decide that I only wanted to be with one person, it didn't make any sense to me, because I figured that I was going to have to compromise in something. Like, maybe I would love this aspect of them, but they wouldn't have this aspect. But if I was polyamorous, well, I could find somebody who was really strong in each of the different aspects and create the perfect partner, like a Frankenstein's monster, where I got to experience all the parts of everything I loved in a variety of different people. Philosophically, it's a sound.
Sounds good in theory. Sounds great in theory.
Sounds great in theory. In practice, it's brutal, because you're in love, and there's jealousy, and then there's rivalry, and there's all of these different factors that, despite my continual, diligent, spiritual practices and efforts, I was never able to fully overcome. Which means that how could I expect any of my other partners to be able to fully overcome it if I couldn't even do it myself? So it was a task too great for what I was actually capable of. But philosophically, I still think it makes sense. But with Vailana, I met somebody who actually, I liken it to having a bingo card with 100 different squares, and then every single square, it just hits, it hits. And, you're putting a checker on every square, all 100 out of 100. And I really didn't think that was possible. Now, I had known Vailana for a couple of years, and I'd been in love with her for a while. So I thought that maybe, but without the intimacy of a relationship, just being in a friendship, you don't really know. You don't really know what it's like until it's on the inside. But I thought that maybe she might be that person. And she absolutely is. And, I feel very lucky. I don't know, when I talk to people and they're like, I wish I could say, I promise you that this person is out there for you. I can't promise that, though. I still feel really lucky. I feel like I won the universe's greatest lottery of all time, that we were able to come together. Now, you can also take the spiritual perspective that there are no coincidences. And certainly I believe that as well. But nonetheless, I feel incredibly blessed. And it's just been, it's been beautiful. Of course, there's little things that come up, and as we adjust to each other and learn to each other, but it's, been the absolute greatest blessing of my life.
Yeah, it's very interesting to me, the complexity that is involved in, Vailana and you're two people you're very complex people. You have multiple different talents. You have done all these plant medicine journeys and other psychedelic journeys, and you've got a lot of things going on. And it strikes me that you couldn't just date whoever you want, basically. You couldn't just bring anyone into your life, because they have to vibe with Fit For Service, and they have to vibe with your crew and everything. And I just find it really interesting to see this relationship bloom, because it feels like Vi's fitting in like a wet t-shirt. Like, you see her in like the Fit For Service community, and it just seems like a really great union.
That's what I'm saying. It's an unbelievable ask because I'm such a diverse and complex individual. Like, I want somebody who doesn't always have to unload the deadlift bar when we're deadlifting. Okay, so that's criteria one. There's lots of people like that, but then that person, I want to be able to go on the blistering edge of the most intense psychedelic experience and have her right there with me, connecting in consciousness there. All right, well, now we're asking even more. Okay, and then I want her to be able to dance like a dervish at Burning Man, under the midnight sky. Like, okay, that's another criteria. And that just keeps going. Then she has to, fit in with the Fit For Service and be the queen of this kind of this group of beautiful souls, and be there to serve all of them and be there. And so the list is so immense, and to have somebody who fits all that is just, it's really unreal.
And the benefit to life to have a relationship like that, it's so exponential. It's like everything is just exponentially better when you have that aspect of your life locked in place. Like, business gets better, fun gets better, weekends get better, chilling out and watching movies gets better, going to the gym gets better, going out for dinner gets better. Like, everything is, I guess I'm kind of speaking from my own personal experience, but when I don't have a love relationship, and I went through basically all of my 20s up until about 30 years old without having a long-term love relationship. And I was totally convinced that, like, I want my freedom. I want to be single. I want to be able to get together with someone if I feel a connection. I don't want to be tied down. But then, having gone through, like, actually my first long-term relationship was with Tatiana. That lasted 4 years. And then I'm like, oh, this is why relationships are good. Like, just having that, like, best friend with you, that soundboard who's always there to help you make decisions and, even help your business. And like, it just adds so much to life. So, when you and Whitney split up, and I knew you were, like, suffering a little bit because of that emotionally and kind of, feeling a bit of loneliness and stuff, like, I felt for you. And I was really authentically happy for you to hear that you and Vi got married. And like, you guys didn't, like, you did it in your own very, very, like, Aubrey way too. It was just like, you just, like, did it. And then you kind of came out, and you didn't spend a whole lot of time, I don't know. Like, how was that process for you of, like, deciding and then actually going about it and announcing it to the world and everything like that?
Well, as I said, I've been in love with her for a while. So when the opportunity arose, I was like, I'm going all in. And if I go all in and I get busted, so what? At least I know that I pushed every single chip I had in the pot. And because I was sure. And, she was sure pretty quickly as well. I was sure probably a little bit before she was. But yeah, I mean, that was it. I was just, this is one of those all in moments where and people were like, come on, man, like, give it a moment. Like, how do you know? And I was like, listen, I can't explain to you how I know, but I know with every cell of my being. I know in a way that I've never known anything before. So it was a certainty. And that certainty was also a great alleviation of stress, because you're always analyzing, like, because I really love Whitney, and I was always thinking, like, maybe it could be, I think this might be, but it was always that tension, that stress of wondering if, and if a few things, were to transform, and if a few ways that we related changed, and maybe then, and all of that was, it's a form of suffering, always analyzing and wondering. And then to just be absolutely sure, I mean, that's a great blessing. But I will tell you, one of the things that has been a challenge is it is better for all aspects of life, except for the ego-based motivation and some of that drive. Like, this is one of the things that I've wanted more than anything else. It's not like I love, I have my Tesla, it's great, but I'm not like trying to get a bunch of Bentleys, and I'm not like, I don't care about fancy watches. It's not like money that really drives me. I wanted to have an incredible partner. And that was like part of my motivation. Like, I want to be the greatest person I can be so that I can attract the greatest lover of all time. And then I get the greatest lover of all time, and I'm like, wait a minute, what's my motivation now? And it's really chastened me to a certain degree and given me a purity of purpose, because now I don't have the selfish motivations. Onnit's been incredibly successful. All my other endeavors, my book's been successful. Fit for Service is successful. I'm living my purpose. But the only thing left for me is that call to service, is the call to give the world my very best. And the ego aspect of it has been removed. And ego motivation, it's like a coal oven. It's a dirty fuel, but it's fuel. No doubt about it. And I was burning that coal oven my whole life. And so it was a reorientation to saying, there's nothing that I'm doing for me anymore. I have to do this for the real purest reason. And I always cared about the world, and I always loved the world, and I always gave to the world in that way. But now it's like the only thing left for me is the pure motivation, which is beautiful. It's just a reorientation of moving from love rather than moving from ego.
That's interesting to hear you say that. That was actually something I wanted to ask you about, like kind of like what keeps you motivated to keep going when it seems like, I'm sure you've experienced points in your life where you feel like you've gotten there, like you've got everything you need. Now what? Like now what do you do? And so what is it that keeps you motivated? It seems like service is a big driver for you. Like you're motivated to serve. You're motivated to help other people serve better. And that's what brought you to create Fit for Service. We even called it Fit for Service. Right. Like the motto was, what was the motto for that?
In order to be at service, you have to be fit for service. Right.
So man, that's been its own huge adventure for you, right? Like you're in your third year now? You're going into your third year?
Yeah, 2021 will be the third year.
Wow. So, what kind of common threads are you seeing that people join this community for? What are they coming in for? What are people wrestling with? And what are you seeing are like the gems that people are walking away from? And what kind of gratification does that have for you to see these changes that are taking place in people's lives?
I think people come for a lot of reasons, but what they end up having is the pearl of inestimable value is the community. It's feeling like they're not alone anymore, that they can share absolutely anything that's going on in their life. And they're going to have a tribe of people who are there to listen and say, oh yeah, I've been through that too. And in some way, in some form, I've experienced what you're going through, and this is what helped me and what's helping you. And so it's a group of people that's just learning and growing together. And it's absolutely the community that's the most valuable thing. And to drive that community to get closer is a lot of, rituals and rites of passage. And so it's the breath work and the ecstatic dance and the temescal and, all of the different practices that we can do. Now, of course, because we're a US-based organization, we can't go and have, plant medicine ceremonies. That would be another great rite of passage that would bring us all closer together, but that's not available from a legality standpoint where we're at. So we use all of the other practices, which are also incredibly powerful. And I think, people, especially even for me, I started on my plant medicine journey when I was 18. I had my own, rite of passage vision quest and took some mushrooms out in the mountains with a shaman when I was 18. And so that was my introduction. So when I first got into breath work, I was like, what are you saying? That I'm going to breathe and something significant's going to happen? Like, whatever, I'll just do mushrooms. But when I actually got into it, I was like, wow, this is, as powerful a medicine as anything else. It just is accessing your somatic body in a different way. And same with ecstatic dance and same with all of the, sweat practices. They're all different, powerful medicines that all deserve their place in the pantheon. So we go through all of that together, and that just brings people closer and closer. And the results have been incredible for people, from business partnerships to romantic partnerships to just lifelong friendships and just that sense of deep community.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've had we've had a number of people. Actually, we have someone from Fit for Service at Soltara right now. She's got here last night.
Yeah, Maria.
Maria. Yeah. I just I met her last night. Yeah, they've got a very small group this week, 8 people. Just 8 people here this week. This was we're still kind of fighting through a little bit of residual lockdown, slowdown, but 8 people, you can't go wrong, man. It's a really nice group size.
That's beautiful, yeah.
Super chill. But I mean, then Kyle and Caitlin are coming, I think, in January. And Eric too.
Will be back, yeah.
Yeah. And you're coming.
And I'll be there with like 20 of the brothers and sisters from Fit for Service too. So
all for Fit for Service.
I am a little bit worried. I have to admit that I'm a little bit worried about what the winter season is going to do for, lockdowns and the change of administration and what's going to happen with travel and everything. But, we can say some prayers and hopefully it remains.
You and me both, man. You and me both. I watch the news with a healthy dose of anxiety every day. Toronto just went back into lockdown for 28 days. London's going into lockdown. I mean, as long as they're not closing the airports, I think it's a real tough situation around the world, I think. And yeah, I don't know if there's a real clear path forward, a real clear answer that anybody can agree on. Some people think that the virus isn't really that bad and we should just go full steam ahead. I probably might lean closer toward that camp, but other people are totally in support of just total lockdowns. So it's got any opinions on that, or it's a touchy subject?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I think what really is needed is a nuanced discussion. And I think people underestimate what the cost of a lockdown is, and what the cost of wearing masks are and what the costs of all these things. And so they're not looking at a robust picture and they're being really guided by fear. And I think what's really needed is a holistic view of, what are the actual consequences of, absolutely decimating, economies in different countries. What's the cost of isolation on human health? I mean, loneliness is the number one predictor of early mortality. But how many people are talking about what the effect of isolation is on loneliness and what the long-term effects there are on that? How many people are talking about, the comorbidity rates, which is, 12 times higher risk of some serious adverse event from COVID if you have one or more comorbid, conditions like, obesity or different things. And people aren't really looking at supporting the organism holistically at the same time. So whatever your opinion is, I think the key thing and what I try to voice is we have to look at this in a much more holistic and much more well-rounded position and look at all of the different factors. What are the factors? How is this affecting domestic violence and domestic abuse, both the women and children? How much are they suffering from this? And what's the cost of that? What do those deaths count for? It's not just one death toll that we're looking at. What's the suicidality death toll? What's the, economic downturn going to cause to world, famine and in different issues?
It'd be good to have a misery index. Right. You wrap all that stuff into misery. Because really, I mean, if you look at it objectively, if the world loses 1 million people, objectively, it has really zero impact on the world or on society, except for the misery that causes, right? Someone dies, the family's miserable, but I mean, it's really kind of an emotional thing. And then, but what's not being calculated is the misery that's caused by keeping people locked in their houses for a year, or, having all of these millions and millions of small business owners, productive members of society who have say worked for 10 years or 20 years to save up just enough money to put into their dream. And now they're running a little business and, they're doing it for the passion of the freedom that they get or to serve their communities. and then the government just comes in and flips them off like a light switch. Like nobody even cares about those people. And that causes misery too, because then those people go out of business. Maybe those people commit suicide. Maybe the people who work for them now have to go on government programs. And it's not like you can flip that stuff off a lot easier than you can flip it back on. Like those businesses take years of effort and saving and investment and like just blood, sweat, and tears to grow. And you and I can both speak from experience because we've put those blood, sweat, and tears into growing businesses from scratch. And, when you're in your first few years, it's really hard, man. So
yeah, that's what it is. What we're all pointing to is really a nuanced look. And that's what I think is missing. It's not that any of us have a crystal ball and we understand what's best, but we need to have an open dialogue where, a lot of people are analyzing all of the different factors and talking about it. And it feels like people are being very myopic. And that's the thing that worries me. And also the censorship and everything else that's going on. That's, I think that's something to be really wary of whenever, people are stepping in and denying the access to these conversations where we're really looking at, okay, what is the efficacy of social isolation? What is the efficacy of masks? Is this actually working? And when you look at the populations who are adhering to these policies, is this helpful? And where are we being ridiculous? I know in some of the areas in Canada, I think in BC, they were recommending that people have sex through a glory hole. And then something just came out in Toronto where they were recommending that you have your partner face the other direction while you're having sex. So like doggy style only. Like what are we talking about? Have we ventured into the realm of ridiculous here? And I think that's where we have to just kind of take a look and say like, all right, fear is a little bit out of control here. We're all going to die. And so, and this is a pestilence on humankind, but we've survived and withstood many of them. So what's the best course of action? And maybe it is to lock down, and maybe it is to wear masks. And I don't have enough information to say like, I know the way, but I have enough information to say, let's ask questions and let's talk and let's celebrate the voices that are putting out the disparate opinions, because that's what science is. Science is the art of asking questions. And the moment we stop asking questions is the moment that science becomes dead, and dead science is dangerous science.
Yeah, man, you had a really impressive podcast with Sean Stevenson, was it? If I remember correctly, is he Dr. Sean Stevenson?
No, he's been a health researcher for like the last 20 years.
Okay, yeah. I thought that that interview was really good. Very nuanced and it's really hard to have conversations about this stuff. And I think, a lot of content creators have struggled a little bit at this time with trying to dig in a little bit, trying to investigate a little bit, trying to kind of find more nuanced information, more nuanced truths, perhaps alternative viewpoints, and have been getting outright censored. Like JP and Amber Sears did a great podcast a week or two ago about this. I just interviewed Brian Rose a week or two ago for this show, and he's been deplatformed. He's been threatened to lose his channel on YouTube. And a lot of people, it's not even that he is saying something. He's not making a statement. He's just interviewing various people who have other opinions or are presenting alternate research. So then you've got, I think the YouTube community standard was anything that goes against WHO guidelines. But how many times have WHO guidelines changed as well, right? Like at first it was lockdown, and then they outright came out and said, yeah, lockdowns cause more poverty and misery than they do save lives. So, it's just really hard to kind of even have a conversation about it.
It is. And people are very emotional. Whenever people are scared, they're emotional. And I think ultimately we have to have compassion for everybody. And I think the instinct is to get very polarized and to really kind of say, this is my belief, this is your belief, I'm against you. And I think more than ever, people need to reach across and say, like, I get it. You're scared, and I understand. I'm scared too. But let's just look at this and really hear each other out, without that initial emotional reaction. And that's, spiritual temperance and emotional temperance. And I think the world needs a lot more of that, whether it's political or whether it's, regarding our health. If everybody can just take a few deep breaths and really start to listen to each other, I think hopefully that's what'll come out of all of this polarization, is ultimately people will get sick of being polarized and sick of being isolated and sick of all of the emotional bickering, and really try to come together with, the chorus of various different voices that make up a healthy society.
Yeah, man. I think that that's so important right now, and you see the same thing on the political side, where I think I think another thing you and I share in common is that we're willing to kind of critique both sides of the aisle without taking a position on either one of them when it comes to politics. And I think even just trying to do that, to have, like, I've kind of made a pledge to have a unifying message in everything I do. I think that's what the world needs right now. So, but yeah, like I noticed when the election was over, the left party, the Democrats, talked a lot in the campaign about the need for healing and healing the soul of the nation, and bringing people together. And almost immediately after the election was over and it looked like Biden was going to become the president-elect, I just saw so much of, like, this really hateful and aggressive messaging coming out, like, against the right, against the Trump supporters. And that didn't seem like unifying messaging at all. That didn't seem like what they were saying the country needs right now at all, right? Because you've got, so say Biden got, like, I don't know, 75 million votes or something, and Trump got approximately 71 million or something like that. That's still a lot of votes, right? So you got these 75 million people telling 71 million people that, like, basically, like, fuck you guys, fuck Trump, fuck you, can't wait to get this guy out of the office. And how is that mending anything? Like, what is that what effect is that actually achieving? So, this I think the need you illuminated for nuanced conversation, remove the emotions from the picture, look at the data, involve everybody in the conversation, like, just get people together in the conversation and take away the kind of the tribal mentality and the polarized approach to everything. Hopefully that we can start walking that path going forward. Do you see an optimistic or pessimistic viewpoint of where the country goes from here?
I think, we move oftentimes as an adaptation to, something that's desperate and something that's, so ridiculous that it actually becomes a mirror that allows us to see ourselves. And unfortunately, I think that's the way we're heading. We're heading to the place where things are so ridiculous and so contentious and so polarized and so hateful that eventually people are going to be like, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this, division, and I'm tired of this hate, and I'm tired of, all of these judgments that I'm casting upon my neighbors. And hopefully that's, what's happening. I think about a variety of different people coming together in a story, and that story is the Fellowship of the Ring, where the hobbits and the dwarves and the elves and the humans, they all started getting along. And the elves, which were usually, hating on the dwarves, and vice versa, and the humans, which were, had no interest in the hobbits and everything, they were all different tribal identities. Well, then a great dark force rose up, the rise of the two towers and Sauron and Saruman, and an evil force rises in the world. And then everybody's like, oh shit, we got to get together. let's put aside our petty differences and let's come together. And, hopefully, while there's no individual dark force, the dark force is the division itself. The dark force is the judgment itself. It is all of these nameless, faceless entities that we're encountering. And I believe that will bring people together. And it's a painful process. I wish people could move from pure inspiration. But I think oftentimes humankind, we need a little desperation, and we need the mirror of something really challenging to really bring us together. So, things might have to get worse before they get better. But I have faith that, we'll make the adaptations that are needed, because we really need each other. There's no way we can do this alone. We need all of us.
It's interesting that you just called out the medium as the culprit rather than the message, right? And it's crazy. I'm actually experiencing the same thing, kind of right here in my own world, where there's been some kind of communications going back and forth of in a destructive way, people communicating in a destructive way. And what I've seen is it's not actually what they're communicating that I want to focus on. Like, say an accusation of something, someone's accusing somebody of something, but they do it through back channels to somebody else. And then it gets kind of like a gossipy, convoluted mess. And, what I'm seeing is that act of communicating is more destructive than whatever accusations are being changed hands. And so I want to call out that medium of communication, of back channel, gossiping, kind of backstabbing, sabotage, like anything that appears like that, to me is the evil right there. Right. It's not whatever act that somebody did that someone else is now telling someone else about. I'm not going to try to get to the root of that. What I'm trying to get to the root of is who is doing this kind of destructive communication amongst the team. And like that needs to be rooted out. And then once you root out that, and once you have these clear channels of communication, and when you create a culture of direct, mature communication between people, which I'm sure you guys talk a lot about in Fit for Service, of just speaking your heart in the moment in real time. So you're not holding on to something, letting it stew and fester, and then you need to discharge some of that vile, evil, whatever it is, sludge, and go. And so you have to go and start handing it off to other people, rather than just dealing with it in the moment and speaking it directly to the person who should hear it, who's relevant.
Right. Yeah, that's it. It's really about, we all have our opinions, but if we can all speak those opinions, receive those opinions, and hear each other, great. We're in a good spot. But it's when it's exactly the actual methods that you're talking about, the medium that you're talking about, that becomes a real challenge. So well said.
Want to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship and leadership?
Yeah, let's go.
So for you, what has been the most challenging aspects of growing a startup company from scratch? What's your journey been like from 0 startups to now running multi-decamillion-dollar Onnit?
I think there's what you have to expect is that you're getting into something that you don't exactly know what you're doing yet. If you've never done this before, I'm not going to do it. But if I wanted to start another company, well, I'd have the experience of how to start a company like Onnit. I have no desire to, but I would know it. But the first time building a company like that, there's challenges at every single corner. Every time you push into a different unknown quadrant, whether that's an unknown growth, or whether that's unknown compliance issues, or whether that's unknown logistics or supply chain or ideation or marketing or whatever, everything is relatively unknown and unproven. So you have to really just be very flexible, and very you have to have a clear vision, but also willingness to admit when you're wrong and just understand like, oh, missed that one, wrong there. Oh, this one seems to be working. Appears I'm right in this one. And just really learn to trust yourself. And from the hiring and firing process to everything, it's all learning on the fly. And I think, but that's the only way to learn. There's nothing that anybody can teach you in any books. And podcasts can give some helpful advice, but until you actually do it, you don't really know what you're doing. And so, my advice to everybody would be to just fucking do it. And however, everything that happens, no matter what happens, whether you fall flat on your face and whether you fail, like you're going to learn and you're going to gain experience. And that experience is what's going to actually make you a better leader over and over again. So the only advantage that I had is that I ran a marketing company before Onnit. So I understood at least some of the marketing and product development and, outreach side of the business because I was able to do that for other businesses. So I had some actual experience, but as far as being a CEO, I had virtually none. So it was just really learning as I went, every step of the way. But ultimately, like the golden rule for me was just always be in balance with reciprocity. So make sure that I'm giving to the customers more than they're paying me. So that means having really high quality products, having really honest communication, great customer service. We developed a policy where people don't have to actually return the product to get a refund as long as they're not buying in bulk or in high quantities. Because I realized that it was a game, like so many other companies would be like, yeah, you can return this. You just have to have your initial receipt in your initial box, and it has to be delivered to this special PO box and all of these steps. And people are like, fuck it. Yeah. And then they never buy from you again because they're, have this bad taste in their mouth. But if you have a good product, and I've really just erred on the side of trusting people. And sure, there's been some people who fraudulently said, like, I didn't like it, I want my money back. And then they just devoured the whole thing and they loved it. And there's some checks in place that we can put in for those type of fraud. But ultimately, like trusting people has paid off. And that's been a big lesson is people are a lot more trustworthy than we think they are. We always look at those few bad actors and assume that the whole world is going to be like that. But most of the world is not like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's very, very true. And, a lot of times people become trustworthy based on how much you trust them. If you anticipate that they're going to screw you around, there's a much higher chance that they will. And if you put your faith in them and say, that's cool, man, I trust you. If you screw me over, it's on you. It's your karma. It's not mine. So,
yeah. Yeah.
I've got a chapter in my new book, 12 Laws of the Jungle, called Build Your Masterful Tribe. And what I've found throughout my own journey as an entrepreneur is that having a team, having a tribe that you can depend on, I call it the nuclear tribe in the book, like that kind of tight-knit, ride or die, until the last mapacho is smoked community. That I can count on, even if we fight or whatever. I know that they're there until the bitter end. And then, from there, like kind of the strength of that nuclear tribe, it almost creates like a center of gravity. Like it's like a planet in a solar system and, a sun in a solar system, and it attracts other planets in. What has your, I know you've got a very strong tribe as well. I know you've got a very tight knit, like nuclear tribe. You have been throughout this whole Onnit journey, and you've also managed to grow a massive kind of peripheral tribe as well. So do you have any kind of comments or insight, philosophies, theories about bringing people into your orbit and building a really masterful team of people around you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of a few different things. I mean, one, like a person's character is really important, and so going through different things that actually allow you to illuminate that character is something that's really helpful for that nuclear tribe. Like someone who's willing to willing to go through the challenging experiences, willing to go through those vulnerable experiences. And sometimes, for the Onnit, nuclear tribe, it's not quite the same as the Fit for Service nuclear tribe. There's different levels of access. So in business, it's sometimes the temperance of challenging situations that really reveal character. When someone has the opportunity to take advantage and they have the opportunity to quit, but they don't, then it's the actual challenge of the business itself that reveals the character of the person within it. Other times you'll have the opportunity to be like, hey, come with me. We're going to go do a sweat lodge ritual. And then you watch what happens at hour 3 when it's been dark and the steam has been hot and the prayers have been going for 3 hours. Like what do they have in them? Who's the person that emerges? Is it a diamond at the core, or is it, something that's combustible, brittle? And that's the thing that I think I love being able to get to that point where it reveals. I remember back in the day, knowing that a lot of people weren't going to be down for the more spiritual rites of passage, I would at least get really drunk with somebody, who was going to be in my inner tribe. Because drinking will bring out a lot of different things. Sometimes it brings out aggression. Sometimes it brings out, ineptitude and bad decision making. But the people who I was going to trust, I'd be like, well, I want to be able to trust you half a bottle of tequila in, just like I trust you when you're sober, So there's a lot of different ways where you can kind of look at that. And then, so that's one aspect, character. The other aspect is just actual proficiency. Like, how competent are they? And are they really the best professional for the job? Are they really the most qualified? And it's a trade-off sometimes. Sometimes you have somebody who's incredibly qualified, but their character scores are a little low. Sometimes you have a vice versa, where their character's impeccable, but they're not really qualified. And, I've tended to lean for the people who I interact with the most in my personal brand and Fit for Service. I've definitely leaned toward the character side. And then for Onnit, definitely lean for the competence side. And I think, but ultimately it has to be a mix of both.
That's really great insight. I can certainly identify with you. So you like to kind of put people through your own kind of Aubrey style rite of passage.
Yeah, for sure.
Good.
For sure.
Yeah, I think I do too. And I might even be a little bit sadistic in that context. But you man, if you're going to be depending on people to go right to the bitter end with, you really want to make sure they're made of stone.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is actually trained. Like sometimes you need to assist that process in its development a little bit. Are you a hard guy to work for?
I don't think so.
You really push people? No?
I don't think so. There's certainly some times where I've been very demanding, I think, but probably I err on the side of being too easy to work for rather than too hard to work for, because I'm the part of that's probably challenging with me is I'm the absolute opposite of a micromanager. So unless you really have a clear vision and you're a really strong, like, self-starter and initiator, I'm not going to be giving you every single project that you need to do. Like, I expect you to be looking at the situation, identifying problems before I even have to point them out, and then coming up with solutions, on your own. And I'm really constantly empowering people to do that. So people who like that, they really thrive and they really flourish. The people who have really struggled are the people who need to be told exactly what to do. And they end up not being able to make it, because I'm not going to do that. I don't have the time nor the interest in doing that. I want someone who is going to be able to look at the macro and be like, okay, this is what I can do and this is what I need to do. So, that's what I really call forward in people.
Dude, I'm 100% the same way. Like, yeah, I'm a big fan of, like, there's a problem, throw 5 people in the mix and see if somebody emerges as a leader who's solving the problem.
Right.
Oh yeah, no, that's I think that's a great approach. And what you end up with, even if it's a little bit challenging for people sometimes, is you wind up with really competent, really self-driven, really problem-solving oriented people. So those people become fantastic additions to the team. So you got to rock pretty soon. Maybe one last technical question, then we'll just, let you riff on kind of your new book and what you're doing and where do people go to find you and stuff.
Cool.
So, I'm obviously starting a show right now. You are a master in this space, have been for many years. You know everybody. Any keys that I should focus on when I'm growing my show, when I'm going out to network with busy and important people, such as yourself? And this, of course, would be advice for anybody. There's a lot of people in your audience and my audience who are trying to start a show or whatever. So, any like nuggets of wisdom there?
Well, everything is based on reciprocity, right? I mean, that's the basis of all friendships, all relationships, all business partnerships, anything like this. So you have to, when you network and when you're growing, you have to understand be mindful of reciprocity in all aspects. So for your listeners, you have to make sure the quality of your show is worth their time. They're giving you time. Your show has to deliver value that's equal or greater to the time that they're giving you. And the greater, what you're giving is to the amount of time they're giving, the better off you'll be from the listener standpoint. And then as far as networking to other individuals, you have to take a look at what you have to offer. Now, a new show, the struggle is that you're not going to be able to offer a lot of, growth for their platforms and a lot of listens and those kind of massive things. Like, it's real easy for someone like Tim Ferriss or Joe Rogan. It's like, yeah, come on my show and we'll get, in Joe's case, tens of millions of people to listen to you. And in Tim's case, whatever, 1 million or 2. I don't know what his numbers are. But like, those are a ton of people, And even for me, I have enough people where just coming on the show is enough. But however, still I'm mindful of that because my show's not as big as these guys. So, what else am I offering? Friendship, support in whatever they're going through in their life. And I think that's something that, you've done a good job as well. You have a great thing going with Soltara, and a lot of people are highly interested in that. And, let's be frank, we're friends. But one of the reasons why I'm, jumping on the show is you made a very generous offer to always support all of my tribe and my circle, and a constant ongoing offer anytime I wanted to go down there and experience the medicine. And you've been there in a way that's like, okay, like you're supporting me in a variety of different things. So I'm happy to go on and do this show and support you because the reciprocity is in balance. I'm not going to receive from this show a value equal to what I gave for my time for being there. But holistically, you've provided ample value for everything that you've offered and offered to my family and offered to everybody else. So the reciprocity is in balance. And I think that's the key thing. And you do that naturally really well. And I think that's, why you're going to be really successful in this, is that you have something to really offer people that's of significant and important value. And that's the key. And then as your show grows, then you'll have that additional thing where it's like, well, now I'm getting, 25,000, 50,000 downloads a show. And so now that's another thing that can help, grow people's platform and raise awareness about anything that they're going through. So, but it's all reciprocity. It's all about reciprocity.
Sage wisdom, my friend. Thank you so much. And,
of course,
I really, really appreciate you making the time. I actually came up with my list of the first 12 episodes who I would love to have on the show. I put you on that list with a big question mark beside it because I thought you were probably a long shot. But, what's actually surprised me is that some of the people who I thought were for surely dependable and sure things on that list didn't show up, but you did. So, like, infinite gratitude, man. Like, I'll always be here to support you in every way that I can. And of course, your whole clan, Fit For Service and everything. You guys are absolutely always welcome at Soltara. And we're just happy to have this like healthy relationship going on between the two clans. Unite the clans.
Unite the clans.
So yeah, man, thank you so much for your time. It really does mean a lot, and I hope we can have more chats in the future when maybe I can offer a little more value in terms of viewership, in terms of reach. But anyways, you're coming down here in January, so ideally, it as the Costa Ricans would say, si Dios quiere. Si Dios quiere, if God wants, you're coming down here in January with the Fit for Service crew. We've got a live studio here, so if you feel called, we can sit down in the white leather chairs here and have a chat. But we can make that decision as time goes on. So I guess to close out, what's next for you? What are you working on now? What do you want to direct people to? What's exciting for people to follow up on here? And last words for the audience.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about all the podcasts that I have coming up over the next few months. That's a big thing. I think I've been putting a lot of effort into the podcast. The book is still quite a ways away. I mean, we're talking 2022 release. So, nothing to hold your breath about there. Fit for Service, as you mentioned, is, a deep part of my heart. But, just continue to follow your own light and find that love and acceptance and unity with as many people as you can. That's as great a gift to me as anything else that anybody can do.
Cool. Well, you're on Instagram at Aubrey Marcus and Twitter, same handle, right?
Yep.
Website, aubreymarcus.com. You've got your podcast on there. You've got the Ayahuasca documentary, the Wachuma documentary. You got some binaural beats. You got some other cool stuff on there. Lots of blogs and interesting poetry and writing and stuff. Bit of an eclectic creative man over here. Fit for Service. Do you take incomings on Instagram or by email or by website?
Yeah, AubreyMarcus.com/fit for service.
Okay.
And it's on Instagram at fit.for.service.
Okay. Well, there you go, folks. Heard it straight from the source. Highly recommend checking out all of Aubrey's content, checking out Fit for Service. Like, I have met dozens of people. I mean, I was in a group of 150 or something like that. So I met a lot of people in the first year, but even since then, a lot of people coming down to Soltara, really wide open, just loving life, just broken wide open, expressing themselves, feeling the love, getting in really great relationships. Like, you just see the sparkle in their eye. Yeah, that's a Fit for Service sparkle right there. So, I mean, from personal experience, highly recommend Fit for Service. Yeah, man, just Aubrey's a shit. So give him a follow. Thanks, man.
Shit. You're welcome, brother. It's good to talk to you, man. We'll catch up soon.
Just keep your computer open for 30 seconds and we're good.
Will do.
Peace out, man. Thank you very much.
All right. See you, brother.